John, welcome to the Netherlands. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Jens, and your team for having me. It's really nice to be back in the Netherlands. I lived here for 10 years and have fond memories.
Let's start with Miss O'Neill.
Wow, straight in.
Yeah.
Miss O'Neill. The special thing about Miss O'Neill for me, she was my piano teacher when I was 17 years old, just for 1 year. And I was doing this exam, and she was the one teacher that wasn't prepared to accept an average performance or a lazy attitude or just do the piano lesson. So she had a huge impact on me because not only did she get me to do better and to try harder, but she gave me a whole different view of the piece of music I was trying to learn.
So from sitting in the room with Miss O'Neill to today, being the owner and CEO of several companies, what happened?
She understood people. She understood what it was to be a teacher, a leader. And she understood what it was all about, which was the student and bringing out the best in the student. And it's funny how she was tough, but did I enjoy those lessons?
Was that the early way to get into engineering as well, or did that came later?
Well, we had career guidance to kind of guide us or try to guide us towards our career objective. And I got into engineering maybe because the engineer who came in and gave us the presentations just sounded like a cool guy and sounded like his job was interesting. But, when you look at something like music, it's all the same. The structure, there's harmony, there's counterpoint, there's mechanics, there's practice, there's good and bad. It's just a microcosm of engineering. So engineering looked like an interesting thing to study in college with no real understanding of where it was going to take me.
How was it at that time? Was it a lot of your friends went into engineering as well, or were you unique?
None of my friends went into engineering. None of my family ever were engineers. So, but I met lots of friends and made lots of friends who are still friends of mine ever since. It was a kind of just an interesting voyage of discovery, you might say.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. For me, it was similar to your case, having this counseling when you're, I think, in 8th grade in Germany, at least at that time. You kind of need to figure out what do you want to do in the future. Do you want to study? Do you want to start? Because Germany has this specific education system where you can start working with 16 and you do an education which is practical and theoretical at the same time. So you go to school and work in an organization. And we used computers at that time already, where you need to answer loads of questions and then it comes out, hey, this kind of jobs will fit to your profile. And for me, it was electrical engineering that came out. And that's how I ended up being an electrical engineer, at least interested in it as a starting point.
So would you say the computer program got it right?
I think so. But I think that if talking about me, it was more the way I think. And it's most probably the algorithm at that time. I'm not sure if it was that smart already. But it's more my way of thinking is most probably better connected to engineering, because today I'm not really working in a normal engineering context. I still apply the way of thinking of engineering, but I'm not working as an electrical engineer anymore. So.
See, the funny thing is, when I think it's good when you hear educators say to people that the world is their oyster, they can do anything. The job of the future doesn't exist yet. These are truisms. I think what I've discovered over my life of experience is that it's all the same stuff. So when we say we're an engineering critical thinker, so is the poet. Yeah. So is the musician, the composer, the carpenter. I like the system in Germany where it's very focused on apprenticeship. It's very focused on hands-on learning from the masters and getting involved and mixing that with the theory. Both are essential, but the system I grew up in was all theory and no practice.
Yeah.
So you're missing half. So I think we end up kind of generating the same creative skill set in our mindset, no matter what we do as a career.
Yeah.
If we allow ourselves to find that vocation.
I think the key part for me, and I see this now with my daughter as well, being in the Netherlands, is learning by doing, not just by the theory. And at least for my case, my daughter was in different school systems, so she started kindergarten before COVID hit in Denmark. Then we moved to Germany inside of COVID for a short amount of time. So she was in a kindergarten in Germany, and then we moved to Spain, and later on, then she started school. And now she's in a school in the Netherlands, and it's so different, the educational system and how they, let's say, get the kids to ask questions. In Germany, it was all about how do you follow the order of the teacher, and you were not allowed to question them. And in the Netherlands, it's almost the opposite. It's like maybe not question the teacher per se, but question to understand. And just the training that I see in like my daughter growing up is the education of asking the question is something I love to see. Because for me, this is one of the most important things to learn as a human in general, asking interesting questions.
That's a fantastic point, and I do also have a daughter who started in the Netherlands education system. I'm a huge admirer of the education system here and other systems in Europe, which I've studied, as part of the research that I'm doing, and It's incredible to realize that the very, very young children are full of questions and full of curiosity. And us as parents and teachers should be very, very aware of that and should respond to it in a very supportive way. No question is a stupid question.
Yeah.
Maybe, again, as with everything, there's a counterpoint. In school, we need to learn the basics. That's learned by rote, the 3 R's they talk about, reading, writing, and arithmetic, is it? Or arithmetic? We need to learn those skills. So it's not good to have an education system where
you don't
just
do
forget
any,
about that.
agree,
We can't just do what we like in society. But we shouldn't maybe condition ourselves too much in education and leave plenty of space for creative activity.
Yeah, for me, it's the how can be different, and that's something I think needs to evolve.
Yeah.
As well with technology, because there are certain things where technology might help, but where technology might be as well the opposite. And we have talked about that previously. We have decided as a family, I mean, she's 8 right now. She's not allowed to use any screens. She's not allowed to use technology. She should use paper, pen, and play as much as possible. Obviously, you cannot do this black and white. She's using the iPad to listen to audiobooks, but she's not allowed to sit more than half an hour per week on the iPad to watch something.
I think that's fantastic. I think some of the more advanced or enlightened or mature education systems in the world are removing technology from the schools, like in Sweden and in Finland and places like that. And I think it's terrible that we're too blown away by the technology. We believe it's good. I learned this when I was teaching in university in Galway after I did my master's degree. I had mastered this computer, where I could create wonderful data entry and graphs and everything. And I brought it into the lab for engineering students and said, instead of drawing on your pen and paper, you can put it in the computer and see the perfect graph. And I was very proud of myself until years later I realized what a bad mistake it was, because they weren't learning anything. They were just putting the numbers into the computer and just getting the result. And it's quite sobering when you look back and realize all the mistakes you were making, but totally believing in them. I think technology is wonderful, but it has a proper place, and we need to remember what that place should be and maybe rediscover it.
Yeah, I think that's especially now with the speed of technology advancement.
Yeah,
I was just talking with a friend the other day, and we were looking backwards. You can only connect the dots backwards, not forwards. It was very hard to connect forwards. So we were just looking at the last 20, 30 years that I can still remember how much technology, like I think the last generation that still remembers before we had a smartphone, before we had a mobile phone even, before we had a computer at home. I still grew up with the old telephones where you need to run to the hallway and it was connected to a socket. It was even not a like headless or cordless phone at that time. And now it's so advanced. Now you have ChatGPT, whatever it is, AI on your phone, and you can ask any question that you want. This is like extreme and fast movement in just 30 years. But we as humans, we have not changed. Like our basic human needs and everything is still the same. And we just have supercomputers now, if we take the phone as one of the examples.
Well, I think we should be careful congratulating ourselves on how good our technology is. I think we should also separate out the different types of technology and the role of technology, especially when we're in an age now which has introduced words like AI and, as if it's something new or different. It's just another evolution of technology in my book. But one of the things that has occurred to me in a career, I've spent my career at the coalface working with businesses and working with technology, where we've sort of hear people saying, isn't the world so much more advanced because of technology? And sometimes I ask, well, is the world being held back because of technology? And people don't think that. The iPhone is a fantastic invention. It's absolutely brilliant, but it's a point solution that, in a sense, should be a point solution, although it's a platform for lots of things it can do. As Steve Jobs told us when he launched it first, it's not just a phone anymore, it's a device. And those kind of things are good and work well. But what's missing in all of that is how we actually run our businesses. Yeah. Way beyond the point solution. And I still find it incredible, or not incredible, but is it not a bit ironic that we're still filling out paper forms?
Yeah, very true. Before we go forward, can you explain what a point solution is for those that have never heard about it?
Well, like yourself, I've gone through, but longer than yourself, I've gone through the kind of evolution of the technology age and its jargon. I've also gone through many consulting strategies and models, also with its jargon, and with its misuse of some good philosophies. So, for example, it's good to focus. Doesn't mean you should have a focused technology solution for every part of your organization, because what we end up with is a lot of point solutions, which should be working together, but don't. So a point solution for me is the nature of most of the technology we have out there. But of course, the industry calls them platforms. But a platform tells me, if I look it up, the meaning of the word is the kind of a totality of something. Like I don't put a drama on multiple platforms in the theatre. There's just one platform, and it should support the whole stage. It should support the whole play. In our business environment, we have lots of point solutions. I call them pointy because they're all different. They're all pointing in different directions. And yet they're trying to enable something which is fundamentally unified.
If we use that analogy in an organizational context for normal people, so I'm trying to find solution that everyone understands. So on one hand, you have, let's say, Microsoft, where you have emails and calendar in one application. And then on the other hand, you have an enterprise solution, which, let's say, Salesforce, which it's a CRM solution. These are two different things in an organizational context, and they're, if I understand, pointy. but they don't really connect to each other. There may be integrations where you can like send an email and the email will be saved somewhere, but it's not really integrated as a proper solution, if I understand that right.
Yes, I mean, when I started my career in the wonderful world of management consulting back in London, terms like systems integration were supposed to mean, enabling technology to integrate with business. Whereas today, people interpret systems integration as connecting things that are disconnected, interfacing, moving data from one system to the other with a lot of things you need to do to get it in a shape to move from one system to the other. So in that sense, we persist not in unifying things, but we persist in further fragmenting them. There's lots of AI apps. You were telling me this morning, there's lots of AI apps, which are wonderful things, and you can create them yourself, but they do very, very specific tasks. Unfortunately, the world in reality, in nature, is completely connected. I think John Muir, the American guy out in the wilderness in the 1900s or the 1800s, made the comment that every time you look at something in nature, you realize it's connected to everything else. And business is no different.
Yeah. If we take that to loop back to still like the mid maybe of your career, in 1999, you worked with the gentleman named Declan in a project of large integration. What was the result of that integration, and what did you decide then to do?
Well, it was a fantastic project. I was working with Price Waterhouse before they became PwC. Price Waterhouse in Amsterdam, and I was leading up their technology practice. And there was a very, very large systems integration project happening, which was to support the future direction of a global computer manufacturer called Compaq at the time. I don't think I'm giving any secrets away when I say that, which was subsequently bought by HP. But at the time, we were trying to take out an old system and replace it with an entirely new system for 36 countries in Europe and a number of countries further afield, like Singapore and Curacao and places like that, in Africa. And that was an amazing experience. And in that project, I met Declan Shannon. And Declan Shannon was a contractor. He came into the project. I made good friends with him. Very interesting guy. He was a finance guy, not really an engineering guy, but he was helping us to prepare data and all of the rest of it. And in that time, in the talking with him, we kind of said, well, you only live once. And I had this idea of setting up a business that specialized in what we were learning. So we decided to set up Ventis at the time, myself and Declan.
What was the problem that you started to, that you wanted to solve with Ventis at that time?
Well, I don't think we were trying to solve a problem. I think we were, at that time, sort of following a trend. I don't think we were that...
So you have seen it as an opportunity for you to...
An opportunity to create a business and to be useful in the world of business, technology, and people. So you mentioned CRM. CRM was the buzzword at the time. So we decided to enter this world and partner with these technologies coming from primarily the United States. And to help those technologies become successful. So we were aligning business to technology, which today I think is completely the wrong way around.
Why is that the wrong way?
Well, that was the era when the package had arrived. So my early era was about going into businesses, and usually enterprise, big businesses, because they were the only people who could afford to build their own systems. So banks and government were leading the way, and large manufacturing organizations. The package came along promising, you don't need to build anymore. You can buy. Why buy? Why build when you can buy? So they would create this solution and sell it to the market. And that's the world I entered with our own business
Yeah.
through the early noughties and up to today. So the issue is that you are trying to align business to that technology. We pay lip service to terms like design and what the business needs. And really what we're doing is, or were doing, as far as my company is concerned, was trying to make the technology work for the business. I think that's totally the wrong way. I think technology should be enabling the business need, and the business should be in the driving seat, not the other way around. So instead of aligning business to technology, we should be aligning technology to business.
That's an interesting point, and we'll go back to that later. Before we go into that, as part of you starting your business in the early days, then you transformed it, if we call it that way, to being now Capventis. What is the difference between the early days and how you run it today?
I think it was there was a gradual transition from building a team that was trained in the technology we were trying to implement and implementing that technology as efficiently as possible. Our customers expected that as well, because they were led to believe we buy the technology, it's very straightforward, in it goes. And as the years went by, I started to realize, actually from a very early time, it was always about, I need to understand the needs of the customer. I need to understand their culture, their business model, what they're trying to achieve. I need to understand that and then try to make sense of that with respect to the technology. So gradually we started to say, let's forget about the technology for a minute and just focus on the business need and the organization, and create a model or a design, we call it a design or a blueprint for what they need. And then we should be taking that to the technology and saying, can you enable? Yeah. And that was what brought us over 15 years, let's say, to where we are today, since 2016, 2018, when Mike Hawkes joined us. Mike Hawkes is my collaborator in Next Generation. He's an extraordinary individual with phenomenal experience in the world of technology, with a deep understanding of technology, probably because he started his career right down at the machine code level. He understands technology down to the bits and the bytes, the level where everything is founded. And I started to realize that we could actually create a technology that would, first of all, enable design, okay, and then secondly, enable what was being designed, yeah, as fitting. That's really the goal, the aim.
How was it for your team? So you were technology first in the beginning, and I guess the team members were all technologists and engineers and deep into the tech. And then you moved gradually towards design and understanding organization, as far as I understand.
Well, actually, because of the package, the team is not deep technical. And that's part of the issue, I think, is that we've kind of lost our understanding of how the technology works. We just learn how to implement it, to work with it on the surface. So the good thing about that is it suits many, many people to be able to enter that workspace. And that's a good thing. But when the business asks to be able to do things, like you said, with the email and the CRM system, and we want to make them to work together, things break down a bit. And that's when you want a team that has the faculty or the agency or the ability to be able to work at that level. And that only came for us when Mike joined us.
Yeah, interesting. How did the team members take that? Because they haven't had that view before.
Oh, our team, I think, it's all about confidence. I think knowing how things work is one of the most important things for all of us in work.
Yeah.
If we don't know how things work, we just get stressed. And I've seen a lot of that. So the team took that added capability really well, because it meant that we suddenly were able to work with customers and problems that were way beyond those packages we were helping to implement. And I suppose that in itself helped us to further evolve or mature our business design methodology, because that's the language of business. It's the language that we need to become fluent at.
So if I understand you right, is today you understand the business and then help the business to understand what the technical solution is they need.
Yes, and it's another major sort of realization for me in the years between 2016, let's say, and now, is that it is not of any value and not possible for me to improve your business. And so we needed to learn the fact that the only people that can improve the business are the people in the business. So our job is to realize that and to be there as a advisor. Well, that's a strong word. As a help to that. So we bring skill sets and, let's say, experience across industry and our knowledge of doing projects, our experience of doing projects. But my major ambition now is to help businesses become much more self-sufficient. So bringing those skill sets that we have to our customers. That's very, very important to me.
Yeah. Let's jump to the next topic. What makes a good idea a good idea?
That's a very difficult question. It's a very good question. So, what's an idea? First of all, an idea is something which springs from thoughts. Maybe an idea is a collection of thoughts or an organized collection of thoughts. But most of us come up with ideas because we think of something of value that should happen in the future. So an idea is future. It has to be future. If it's a real value thing or an improvement thing, it has to be something we've never done before. It has to be a new thing. It has to be original. That's a business concept. If you're taking somebody else's solution, you're just copying. That's not a great strategy for business. It's certainly not a strategy for improvement. So I suppose that the idea is just the synthesis of something which offers value, and that's the start of what I would call the steps of improvement.
Yeah.
And everything that follows is about setting ourselves up to make that idea successful, a successful reality.
If we take that to business, I have not met any company that does not want to improve, but I have met and seen a lot of companies that somehow get stuck. From your experience, what is the reason that they get stuck?
There's a lot of reasons that we might find it difficult to move forward. One of the main paradoxes of improvement is that we want to improve, as you say, but we find it difficult to change. One of the biggest drivers, it's like gravity, is inertia.
Oh, yeah.
Inertia. And inertia can come in various forms. For example, inertia can be to do with people's motivations, people's biases. When you have a problem, there's always somebody making a profit.
Yeah, true. So,
and can be difficult to change things because change is a bit unsettling and can be a bit scary. The other side of it in business world, why do people get stuck? We have this term in the industry called technical debt, which really is a description of where all of this 30 years of package solutions and point solutions and platforms masquerading as solutions has landed us in a world of technical debt. I call it the mess in the basement. because not only have we put technologies in the basement, but they go out of date very quickly. So that also causes a change. So a difficulty to change because we're spending most of our time in businesses just keeping the lights on, just maintaining that debt.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good thing. And I think we need to change from that. And the answer isn't to create another layer of sophisticated technology on top of it, which is unfortunately a lot of the industry's sort of reaction is forget about what's there and just look at the new thing. And that's okay if the new thing replaces what's there. But if it can't replace what's there, we're just adding to the technical debt.
Yeah. What I have seen working inside of super large organizations worldwide was some organizations somehow wait until they're pushed to change, and some organizations are early on, like, I don't know if you want to call them early adopters, but they're almost on a continuous improvement loop to figure out how they evolve over time. And they have that somehow in their DNA, but others are only moving when there's no other way anymore.
Well, that's a very good question and a very good observation, I think. Are you changing because you have to, or are you changing because you want to? You might argue that a lot of organizations, especially the older legacy organizations, we get comfortable, we get lazy, we get, let's not rock the boat, everything's fine, everything's going good.
We have done it always this way.
Exactly. Well, maybe. Maybe that is exactly how it works. And then what's happening is around that, you've got the imaginators, the visionaries, the people who step back and say, hang on, we could create a new market, or we could create a new solution to an existing market. And I've been asked this question before, and I think an answer to the problem is, if you're changing because you have to, you're already too late. So we need to catch up then. And that's a difficult project, to be playing catch up.
Yeah.
Rather than creating something new. And organizations where are creating something new, if we have the right culture, are exciting. Everybody's creative, everybody's energetic, everybody is feeling good about it. It's a wonderful place to be when you're in that position. So I suppose for the legacy, the challenge is to change that culture, if possible. The things stopping it are the messes in the basin.
But that means it's not a technical problem, it's a human problem.
Everything is a human problem. It comes back to people. That's why I push back on all this intelligence and artificial this and artificial that. I think we should not forget that we are human, and the human natural intelligence is incredibly sophisticated. And it's all about that anyway.
Yeah. But so that means, in one hand, we all want to improve all the time, but on the other hand, we basically don't want to change.
That's the paradox.
At the same time.
At the same time, there's always a counter to most things. But how many times in our, there is no difference between business and the rest of work, the rest of life. There should not be. We're always designing. I don't think design ever stops. We're always changing. We're always big. And the fact is, it's not that we're trying to make a change. We're changing whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So we got to learn that and maybe embrace it rather than fight it.
One of the things you talk about is 4 biases.
Yes.
And we have touched on one already. Can you explain that so that people understand what you mean with the 4 biases?
Well, I work with another guy called James and Mike and a few other people in our organization, and we talk about these things a lot. So we kind of sit back and take the time to really think about what is it we're trying to do here, and what's the purpose of our activity. And if we call ourselves business improvers or people that help our customers improve themselves, we need to understand what improvement is about. So out of that discussion, we realized that most improvements that people, an awful lot of improvements are accidental. You know, they're like the discovery of penicillin. It was a complete accident. So in other words, we're trying to do something, but we realize something else. An awful lot of business improvement ends up in backfiring. There's a great German word, Verschlimmbesserung, which I hope I pronounced that right.
Verschlimmbesserung.
Verschlimmbesserung, which I was given by a person who understands how to speak German. It's a wonderful word. It's also like worse betterment. It's a backfire. In English, we call it a backfire. And we try something, we are sure about it, we put a lot of energy into it, and we end up making things worse. So that's the B of bias. Inertia, I talked about, is the I. Inertia is the big drag. It's the drag. Accidental is a wonderful outcome, but it's a happy accident. We can't run or define our world by a happy accident.
Yeah.
You know, we can't afford that too much. When we get accidental improvement, be happy. The real improvement we're looking for is step change. You know,
What is it? Step change.
Step change is positive effort with positive value. That's what step change is, and it's not as common as we think. But that's what we're trying to do: is to come up with that idea, and the effort we put in should produce that value, that real value, and try to achieve that step change. And only then can we continue that process through what which Toyota called Kaizen.
Yeah. Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
Yeah.
But the problem again is we can't continuously improve something that's fundamentally bad to start with.
Let's stay with Toyota, because I read the Kaizen book, I don't know, when I was early 20s. At that time, it was already old. It was not a new book. I still remember that, because it was like, I only got a used version. I still have it at home. What is interesting, it's the organization that is built in a very specific way. Going back to your earlier point, it's not the factory. Yes, the factory is built in a very specific way, but they enable the people inside of the organization to be empowered to do decisions.
Yeah.
And so again, it's the combination of how do you have a business that is designed in a very specific way, plus including the culture as part of it, like the human element in it.
Yeah. Well, Toyota started off in the 30s in the loom building industry. The concept of Kaizen was developed in the 50s in that organization, is my understanding. The idea of lots of small improvements, or little improvements, and continuously looking to refine or streamline or make more efficient and all of the rest of it. So that's where that came from. Was that the question? Good.
What is interesting about that is it's so logic, but it's still not happening in organizations.
It's good to be aware. Well, organizations will do things like have staff suggestions, you know.
Like a post box somewhere where you can put in a good idea.
A good idea box. And we have some fun in our company when we introduce these kind of concepts ourselves, and we said, like, give a suggestion. And then we realize it's not good enough to give a suggestion. You know, that usually it's a complaint. Or it's a suggestion to do something, but of course, I'm not going to do it, you're going to do it. So we realized there's no point having a suggestion unless you've got some idea, let's say a developed idea of how that suggestion is going to work and where it's going to improve. So that's the empowerment of people side of it. But then on the other side, if somebody's giving me a suggestion, I am duty bound to listen, consider that, and to take it seriously. And as an organization, or we call ourselves leaders, to not just disagree with it or say it's no good, but to actually work in a collaborative way with the team to work out, is this really good? And then it has to compete with all of the other suggestions. So if we can introduce a culture like that in organizations, that's really, really good. But it's not that prevalent. It's not an easy thing to do. And you see that a lot in big organizations and private organizations. I hear people, they say things like, I know how to fix everything, but nobody's listening to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a terrible, and, you know, it's not for the consultants to come in. You know, it's maybe the ideas are inside your organization.
They are. I mean, if you take the big, I've been through and connected to so many transformational projects that are happening now every year in large organizations. Very expensive consultants come in from the Big Four or whoever is chosen to have that job. They come in, they interview the internal people who all have the answer, and then they're packaging it up in a slide deck with hundreds and hundreds of slides and present it to the management team. All the knowledge is in the organization. It's just that something inside of the organization doesn't allow either people or the organization to take steps to solve them.
Well, this is a big challenge, because it's always good to have help. And if we're going to provide help, or anybody's going to receive help, it's important that the people helping are doing more than just advising. You know, we need, you know, if we're going to help to improve things, we need to know what that means and how to do it. So I put the word design along with improvement. It's not just improvement, it's improvement by design. Again, back to the Japanese, it's improvement by design. So now we've introduced the word called design. And that's what's missing. I think in our, going back to education, are we learning how to design? You know, as primary school students, as secondary school students, as university students, and in the world of work. And I think, unfortunately, design is missing. You know, now, when I mean design, I don't mean product, consumer product.
I was about
design.
to ask.
Like product design is great. Like the iPhone is a fantastic product, or that chair over there, or the table, or the you know, the camping equipment. I'm not talking about that kind of design, because they are point solutions which work and can be such. I'm talking about organizational design, how we work together, how we collaborate to create something bigger. You know, and the biggest organizations are in history. You know, we look at our history of major conflicts or major government initiatives, like the Great Depression, like Roosevelt, what he did for the Americans, it was to organize a country in its entirety to improve itself in a situation where he was told you can't fix it. That's organizational design. You can't do that accidentally. And you can't do that on a bit of a wing and a prayer. Yeah. It needs to be very, very structured. And so my major central sort of point is that we need to apply design, we need to get good at it, and we need to learn it.
How does an organization do that? Are there different steps that organizations can use? Are there different frameworks that you use for yourself and your internal team so that you figure out how to design?
Well, education isn't the biggest challenge, but it's the most critical one. Yeah. Everything starts with education and being able to do things. And I said earlier, you know, the biggest problem in companies is not knowing how to do things. And like if you go down into the technology, not knowing how it works. Yeah. And so it starts with learning and development. So we have a framework which I borrowed from years ago, which is like a capability skills matrix. Yeah. And I think it's a very good model. It comes from the 90s. And what I say is that when you attend a training course, we do need to train our people. We need to be teachers to train our people. But when somebody attends a training course, they are at the level of capable. Okay, and now we have to work up the capability and turn it into, competence. And that can only come through practice.
Yeah.
Like if you learn a language, I tried to learn Dutch, and because everybody in Ireland speaks perfect English,
It's very difficult.
I didn't practice it enough, and I regret that. I should have practiced Dutch more. So we need to turn that capability, that training, into competence. And then we need to turn that into a level of experience. Now, when we're experienced, we're in a much better position to not just create the change and the improvement, but we're actually having fun. It's enjoyable. It's great doing something that you're good at doing. It's no longer a chore or no longer a stressful thing. And so you keep going. I say from experience you get to mastery. And at the end of the line, some of us, if we're lucky, become a guru. And of course, what's the role of a guru? It's to teach.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So I would say that it's a nice, when you go back to the career guidance, the class, I would say the best objective in your career is to become a teacher at the end of the day. And people say, I don't want to teach in schools. I says, doesn't mean you have to teach in schools. Just when you learn all of your skill sets, give it back.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting because in business that's called mentorship as one of the many examples.
Yeah.
And if I go back in my corporate career life, it was all about what are the mentors that I have and how can I leverage them for my own career. But for them, it was also, they were learning through being connected to the young wild gun that I was at that time. Plus, it was like a mix of understanding and a mix of experiencing, because what they did well, at least in my case, they let me be part of something and drive things.
That's back to the question about education, teaching, and all of that. A lot of us end up doing things because we had an inspirational teacher.
Yeah.
And we end up getting into what they were into. That's why I got into water engineering, because of the guy who was teaching us in water engineering was just such a great guy, and developed that excitement in me to pursue that. I think there's some interesting basic human realities. When you ask somebody a question, most people love answering. So most people, when they're asked something, love giving back.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, if we are not curious enough to ask the question, then we're missing out on that free advice, that free interaction. So it's a two-way thing. I can't learn you. That's bad English. All I can do is teach you. You can teach me, and I can learn from you. So you can't force me to learn.
No, true.
I have to want to learn. So I think that's the cultural change we need, where we have an organization where people are genuinely interacting with each other, wanting to learn and wanting to teach. And then that's fantastic. Is that possible? We have to try to make it happen.
I was about to say, it sounds easy when we talk about it, and it's maybe for, let's say, a small group of people, it's relatively easy as well, even though it's hard. But if you take an organization with hundreds of thousands or hundreds of people, going from this to this is not that easy.
No, it's not easy. And again, it's back to the priorities of the organization. Is the organization's focus on the shareholder value, or is the organization's focus on fixing the dilemma that their customer has? What's the reason your organization exists? Must be to do with the help you're giving your customer. When I looked into meanings of words like vision, my English teacher said to me, vision doesn't mean something for you. It means something for somebody else. And I think that's quite profound. So we need to remember also, I think, that the organization is not just about the external customer, but it's about inside.
Yeah.
And we're all customers of each other. and we need to understand each other. And if we create structures in our organization, just the way if we create silos of technology, that's all that's doing is it's creating more and more, departments. I think the word department was invented by the first management consultancy company in the world.
Sounds very German. Guess was not. So let's go back to design. One of the things that you talk about is true design. And within this, you have 7 dimensions or 7 areas of true design. Walk me through them, and let's do that in a way that they can be applied in an organization so that people understand it with an organizational context.
Okay. For me, it was an amazing discovery. Okay, not an invention, it's a discovery. It was realizing that, you asked the question, what is design? And we can talk about it at a high level, but at the low level, how do you construct a design is what you're asking me. There are 7 elements, and I'll describe them. In fact, there's only one main element, which is a thing. So the world is
a thing.
A thing. Okay, a thing. And then people say, what do you mean by a thing? And a thing is an entity. What's an entity? Oh, an entity is a thing. So now we're in a circular loop here. A thing basically is anything or everything. Okay, any entity or every entity. And that actually is what everything is made up of. So a thing, and this is where computer theory kind of sort of straight away falls apart. It says, well, we have entities and attributes. So I learned that there's entities and then there's attributes. So I went through 20 years thinking they were different until I realized that an attribute is actually an entity too. That's a profound understanding because of how we create new technology. If an attribute, which is a characteristic thing of a bigger thing, we're starting to understand how things are put together. So all things are made up of other things. I don't think there's anything that is not made up of lower level things until we get from quarks to energy.
Yeah, that means from an organizational context, it's every person that is in the business, every computer that the business, every asset that the business, every customer that the business connects to, everything.
Yeah. So if you're trying to work out what is it about this business we're trying to do, first thing I would advise is figure out where all the things are, or the things of interest.
Yeah.
We have things of interest and things that are not of interest. So we discard the things that are not of interest at our peril, because maybe they are of interest. We just don't realize it. But just get the things. So like a deck of cards, right? Write each thing and throw it on the table, each thing. So you've got a stack of things. The second element of design is relationships. Right? So that, by the way, relationship is also a thing, right? It is, how does that card link to this card, connect? So that's the second element. And funny enough, when you look at that and think about it, and it's discovery again, what's more important than the things is how they're connected, because that's what makes things.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
The relationship between each other.
Yeah. So the second thing is relationship. The second element of design is relationships. So now we get a bit philosophical and natural again and realize that in the universe, everything is connected. So you need to be able to connect everything. All right? And that's important from technology point of view. Can you connect everything in your technology? Not if you've got a lot of point solutions and a lot of the technical structures we've created over the years. So that's the second element, is things and relationships. And then we get into more things, but they're just higher level things to help us to figure out what this is all about. So the third element is process, okay, which is a bit jargony. Let's say in plain English, process is doing things.
It's like aligning things after each other.
It's a doing thing. And that's the big change agent. Nothing changes unless you do something. It's a bit Isaac Newton, you know. To change something, you have to do something. So what we're doing in business, in relationships, and everything is we're constantly changing things. And things are changing, but most in the Newtonian world, everything's changing because something else happened. Something did something to change it. So the third element is process. Okay, so we're now in a data world, because data is our language here. It's our connection between the real world and the virtual world. The process is changing the data. I change something, I change my representation of something. Something real that's happening. If I want to map it in design, I need to represent it as something in design. And then if I want to change it, I need to know what's the process. What did I do to change the thing? And I need to record that. Okay, that's the third element. The fourth element is a funny one. It's like now we're into structural things, collection. Okay, so we're recognizing that a lot of times we're making collections of things. The world's best experts at making collections of things are 2-year-olds, right? Because if you put a 2-year-old in this room, they'll start making collections, right? They'll do it instinctively, naturally. So all the red things will go there, and all the blue things will go there, and all the big things will go here, and all the things that fit into each other will fit in, and they'll make that tower work, and all of that kind of stuff. So collection is also what we do every day when we go shopping. We get the shopping cart and then we start putting stuff in it. That's a collection. So that's an element of design. It's a kind of an ad hoc thing. It's just a random collection of stuff.
Okay. Is that as well a collection of knowledge?
It's a collection of anything.
Yeah.
What's knowledge? It's just things. Maybe you might say knowledge is things, but our interpretation of those things is a bit higher level. Is this knowledge and then into insight or whatever words we use, which are also things. So everything we talk about is a thing, and we can represent it in data. So I've got to 4. The fifth element, really interesting. It's the fifth is the quintessential element, which in Greek is the fifth, quintessential, the essence, the real thing here. This is where we're getting to the magic. Is structure, okay, and it's how we put things together in an ordered way, like a triangle, like a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a great quote that I came across when I went to see a Picasso exhibition in Dublin in February of this year. And Picasso was fantastic. Exhibition is amazing. I'd recommend anybody to go and look at Picasso. But the quote was from Cézanne, French guy, who is considered the founder of modern art. And he had a quote. I said, "What's this doing in the Picasso exhibition?" And it was because that inspired Picasso and Brecht, his French partner, in the Cubism revolution, or whatever it's called, movement. And the quote from Cézanne is this: "Treat nature by the cylinder, the sphere, cone, all in perspective." I thought that was profound, so I took a photograph, I went home, I started thinking about it, and I said, he missed square, and he missed circle, and he missed... and then I realized that if you look at a cylinder on its side, you got a rectangle.
I was about to say,
Yeah. If you look at a sphere on its side, you got a circle. If you look at a cone to the top, you've got a point.
Yeah.
If you look at a cone on its side, you've got a triangle. And then I realized how profoundly clever Cézanne was, and why Picasso was drawn to it. So everything in design, in business design, computers and data and all of the rest of it, everything in product design is structures that work together or work in harmony. So, the honeycomb, it's all natural. The veins in the leaf of a tree, the Ishikawa mechanism that the Japanese invent for diagnosing problems in manufacturing. These are all structures.
Yeah.
And so that's 5. So the quintessential is kind of cool. It's a big one, but it is made up of the others.
Yeah.
And then the 6th element is space. So space is like, again, sticking to Newton. I'm not into quantum mechanics here. Let's stick to the world as we know it. Space is just location. Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? And because things move around. So the process moves things around. So it's gone to somewhere else. So I want to know where things are. And the final one, which is probably the most difficult one, is time. Because then you get into quantum mechanics and you get into what's the meaning of time and relativity and all of that stuff, where space and time are connected. Everything's connected. Everything's got a relationship. So time is of the essence, you might say, in all of our business worlds and our natural worlds. They're the 7 elements.
So if we take this 7 and look into the earlier part that we talked about, so if we want to improve a company, how do these elements help me? If I understand these elements and understand where I want to get to, like the value that I want to create, how can, as an organization, I mean, let's go back to the point where, so you're either forced to change from the outside most of the time, sometimes even from the inside, but most of the time, or you're willing to change. How does that play a role when it comes to design? And how can an organization understand how to design their way out of it if they're in a situation?
Again, now we're into the faculty of design. The definition of one definition of design I have is 2 sentences. One is that design is the symmetry between the smallest piece and the largest structure. That's the symmetry, how they connect. And the second definition is design is the faculty of being able to deconstruct that symmetry and reconstruct it again. So what I mean by that is, if I put a radio on the table and asked you to build me a radio, you've never seen one before. Now, you're the electrical engineer. What would you do?
I even have built a radio in the past. No, I will take it apart.
Right. That's
and
the
look
right
into
answer.
every single piece. And
Yeah. So you take it apart.
Yeah. Deconstruct
it, and you go down as far as the smallest piece
until
you can't take it apart, and you put them all on the table. That's taking the things and putting them on the table. And you try to understand what's the purpose of these things. So you might see a flappy thing in the disc, and you'll say, what's that for? Now, if you don't know that's the piece through which the sound comes, you've got to figure out, well, why is that there? But I'll tell you one thing. If you didn't take the radio apart, you'll never build a radio. You'll never even know what it is and how it works. I think with Steve Jobs said something really profound. He said something along the lines of, you look into the philosophy of aesthetics. People think, aesthetics is used in the consumer product industry. It's all about the look and the feel. It looks nice and it feels nice. Jobs says, it's not just, design is not just what it looks like and feels like, it's how it works. So to design your business, to want to have an idea of how your business needs to work or where it needs to be or what you want to achieve with an organization, you have to deconstruct things down to the bottom and then reconstruct them again to figure out how everything works. One of the best compliments we ever got from a client was way back in the early 2000s when a client, after we did this activity with a customer where we said, okay, we can create the design and this is how we're going to do it, but you're going to do it with us. There's no way we can, this is not our design, it's your design. But we will sit and work with you on this. We were learning lots. I was learning all about the food industry and everything. It was really interesting and people's discussions. And we were building this model. But what was said to us afterwards was 3 things. They said, you demystified our business for us. And I said, no, you did. You demystified our business. The next thing was you or we articulated where we want to be and what that design is. So we didn't just have it up there. Yeah. We articulated, which means it's on the table. You can draw it.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the third thing was the most important thing for me. is they said, you helped us to agree with each other. Because when you put the radio on the table and everybody constructs it and reconstructs it and then looks at it, they will say, that's ours and we can agree it.
Yeah.
And if we don't agree with something, it comes out in the process. And of course, we won't be, in fact, there's plenty of disagreement. Which brings me to your first question on that, which was, what's the true design? The true design is the one we all agree.
So an organization needs to take literally everything apart to the smallest things to understand how to put it together in a future context.
Not just to understand it, but to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no shortcut.
And most probably, if we take an organization that was fit for yesterday to get it fit for the future, you need to put it differently together.
Of course.
And some pieces, some things might be not necessary anymore, or they are even more necessary, and you need additional things.
Yes, and what's very important in this world of AI doing everything for us is we must do it ourselves. Because when we do it ourselves, that's when we're making the discoveries and the understandings and the insights. So, like I explained to you the 7 elements of design.
Yeah.
Like it was extraordinary when we realized what they were. We kind of went, wow, that's really cool, because we can construct the most complex symmetry out of those elements. It's like Lego, it's like the building blocks. We can put it together any way you like. So now we need a technology to be able to do the same thing.
Double clicking on the AI part and taking your radio analogy. If I would use AI to deconstruct the radio, AI has done it. It is as you would do it for me, and you put all pieces in front of me, I will still not know how they are related to each other because I have not taken it apart myself.
It's a very difficult thing because I think we need to recognize that, okay, let's separate the technology, which is really wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, the ingenuity in these modern technologies. By the way, AI, like Python is AI. You know, that was invented in Amsterdam, right, in 1994. In the Institute of Advanced Science. I'm not sure the name of the institute. And that gave us a model for dealing with data in a certain way to make predictions. So AI is a very loose term. But the most important thing, I think, is for some people, if you are an expert electrical engineer who knows how to build radios, use the AI to speed up. Yeah. Because you're using the tools to do something you're able to do. But if you're a school child in a primary school, if you apply AI, I think it's an abomination. I think it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
I see that in videos of school children all sitting there passively having some iPad talk to them using an AI language. I think it's appalling. They're learning nothing. Just taken away all the agency from the child and given it to this bot, which I think is terrible. So there's a kind of a contradiction there. There's a fight going on, with what's good and what's not good.
Yeah.
So
in as I understand it from our conversation, is leverage it to not to improve but to accelerate. But first, you need to understand and almost master it to be able to use it properly as a tool.
Absolutely. I mean, I've learned everything I know because I've done projects with customers. And every time I go and meet a customer, I learn something new from incredible people in industry who are at the coalface, managing difficult things in difficult industries and different stresses and pressures and everything. So you learn amazing things. I'll never forget the day when Brilliant Basics was put on the table. It was a big food manufacturer, a food retailer. And the project was getting very complicated. And the demos were getting very complicated. And the tech was very, very complicated. And this guy walked into the room. He was the marketing director, and he said, we just want brilliant basics. And I remember saying, I've heard the term before, but in this context, I know exactly immediately I knew what he meant. Okay. So I've taken that term forward since. Like, that was like 20 years ago. I've taken that forward since to define this. If you're doing a project, okay, your people should do the project. They should design it. They should be the people doing it.
Yeah.
When you go and launch this project, that's not the end of the project. That's only the beginning of it. So we don't run away and we put the system in, and then that's all. Adoption matters. Adoption is where the real game starts. So I believe that you should never automate something before the people who are doing that design manually do it. Because then they are completely expert at what it's all about. Then they can make the decision to say, I'd like this automated, the boring bits, the high volume bits. Surely we could automate this. Surely we could automate that. The technology should provide for that, not be a hindrance, which is all too often the case. Can we do this? Well, no, you need another technology for that, or you need another solution, or get a spreadsheet, That's the reality that we're in business. But the key thing is that the automation should only happen when the people are experts. But you know what the problem then is? What about the new people who come later?
Yeah, they don't know.
You've got to be able to deconstruct what you've automated back to the start. And it's like what you were saying last night, which is, I think, is great. Companies that ask their new employees, their new, very important employees, to go to the shop floor and experience what it means to actually do the job manually will win in the end.
Yeah, agree. And that's, I think, what McDonald's still does today. Yeah. If you want to be a manager in McDonald's, you need to flip burgers for a certain amount of time.
Of course.
To understand how it works.
Steve Jobs said, he was kind of an inspirational guy. I mean, Steve Jobs made the point, it's on YouTube, there's a video, how they hired people. And he said, there's no point having managers that don't know how things work. And he made a very important point. He said, why would somebody want to work for a manager who doesn't know how things work?
Yeah,
I'm going to learn nothing. I think that was very profound when he said that. So I took that on board.
And it worked. I mean, I grew up in a very large retailer.
Yeah.
You directly feel it. If someone comes up from, most people know that, at least follow me, I worked in IKEA. So the CEO of IKEA has worked in an IKEA store, at least in the past. I don't know how it is today. But for everyone in the whole organization, if you know that this leader, that is the top leader of at that time 40 to 60 billion company, has worked in an IKEA store, they know how it is to work in an IKEA store. Everyone understands, and nobody can fool them as well, because they know how it works.
I think he is one of the few people who stayed very rooted on the basics of his business. And that's a good trait of a leader, I think.
Yeah, agree.
And just getting promoted up that triangular hierarchy, is okay, so long as you stay connected to what's really going on the ground.
And that's often difficult as larger the organization gets, as further you are away.
Yeah.
And especially when you're multinational or international organization, as more difficult it gets, because you are not connected physically to the people because they're on the other side of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump to, how do we reinvent technology?
Deconstruct. Start over. It's interesting. I was talking earlier on to some people about Carl Sagan, who's known to some of the older people around here. And he made an interesting point about technology back in the late 70s when he was on some talk show in America, and the guy was saying, isn't technology fantastic and all the rest of it? And he said, technology is only in its adolescence. I thought that was an interesting, he was talking about, the possibility of advanced civilizations out in the universe. I think that's an important thing to remember, is that if we're going to try to improve something like technology, we have to do the same as we have to do with everything else. We have to kind of deconstruct it. And what we did in our project, we decided to enter this crazy project to see if we could make technology better. And I have Mike Hawkes to thank for that. It's a privilege working with him.
Which means you did that in your organization.
We're doing it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we started it 5 years ago. And we imagined it 10 years ago. And so it was a combination of, if only we could address business problems better. So the first question was, can we not stop having to say to our customers, sorry, you can't do that. Or you can, but you need some other solution, which may or may not fit what you really want to do. So we decided to ask the question, can we make something that can truly enable the realities of business, which is a subset of nature, okay? So it was a combination of what's the potential of technology versus what's the business need. And design is sitting in the middle of all of that. And as I said, my partner, Mike Hawkes, opened the door for a better potential technology. So I would talk with him about things like the design elements, and he'd talk about, we need, if everything's connected to everything else, then everything has to be small. Because if I want to be able to assemble things in any way, I can't be assembling big things. I have to assemble small things into bigger things, and then put them all together in a way that's perfectly aligned. So that means that we need to be able to do that with data if we want any hope of our computer technologies to be able to enable that business reality for a business, and not just for any business, specifically for your business.
So that means it's tailor-made.
It has to be, because every design is new and every design changes. So when we create a design for a business and create a technology to enable that, on day 2, it's going to change. So therefore, if the business says, I need to change this, then the technology needs to change with it. So that was the going in objective of the redesign of technology project that we started.
That's interesting. And that's a different company then?
It's all been done in Capventis, but it will become a different company. It's called Glue. It's just the name we gave it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a cool name.
Yeah.
But maybe glue is connecting things.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental. So the business ask in our project was kind of the kind of thing that usually technology people might say, you need to get real here. What data? I would say any data. Like how much of it? All data. What kind of data? Any kind of data. Back to our thing. I want to be able to represent anything that's relevant to my model without creating chaos of spaghetti.
Yeah.
But really, so we spent 5 years working with existing technologies, trying to find the best shape of these existing technologies to work. For example, why did we separate operations from analytics? I've grown up in this world, analytics on one side, operations on the other, and you say, why did we separate them? There's no business reason to separate them. They're inseparable. The reason we separated them was because the technology forced us to. Because one database structure works for analytics, or some of analytics, not all of it, and the other database structure is needed for operations. So you got to separate them, which brings us back to this integration thing again. So you got to separate them and then reconnect them all again. So that was our project, was to see, is it possible to create something that's genuinely leading with business and following with the technology.
And that's the opposite way than it is done normally, like you said in the beginning.
Yeah. And we've because of that, we've spent 5 years going in one direction and then realizing it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we retreat back, and as I said, Mike, and it is Mike, has the imagination and also the skill set, because he started off his career at machine code level. He understands technology completely deeply. And we started to realize that we need to deconstruct the technology down to the individual attribute. So that's the actual central point of the glue technology, is that it's right down at that level. And the cool thing is that it means we can create any structure, back to structure again, above that, and do it highly efficiently.
That's hardware and software.
Hardware, the hardware is standard stuff. Hardware is the chips, is the bits and the bytes. At the end of the day, it's down to 1 or 0, as Leibniz told us.
Yeah.
Alan Turing understood. It's literally down to 1. It's on or it's off. Alan Turing added in a space. It's on or it's off. Or it's got a space. And we're at that level now where we're sort of realizing, like you said, how can you take all this kind of bits and things and all the rest of it, and suddenly you could end up with a fully enabled, high complex manufacturing organization, and we can show that we can do that.
That's interesting. So it's connected, like you said, it's connected to the design part that you mentioned, but then it's taking that into action in a technology fashion.
Yes, because digital technology is a mirror of the reality it's representing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people find that difficult to see. How can you get all these things and suddenly you have a TV screen, And I suppose it's like the engineers around, the massive stuff on the table means nothing, but when I put it together, it's a radio. And then somewhere somebody will go, hang on a second, you've just taken some metal and plastic and things like that. How did you make the plastic? Oh, well, that's actually made of other things called carbon and oxygen and nitrogen, and they're connected to things called chemical bonds. So I had to do a process, which is heat something, and then we work back up again. So that's the fascination for me, is that we can model something in data and then make it fit like a glove to the technically make it fit like a glove. And it's extraordinary.
That's cool. So where does all of this lead us in the future if we look ahead?
Well, that's like the question, what was your business plan? That's another thing. We're in the analytics industry, and and people say predict, and I say it's not prediction, it's guessing. So it's guessing, and we have a direction. We'd like to engage with organizations and people to share our discoveries, and to engage with people who have a desire to get their head around this and apply it to their own organizations. That's what we want to do, and to see where it takes us.
On a personal level, one of the things we talked about was vocation. And as far as I remember, there are 4 types of vocation. Can you explain what that means?
4 types of work, or what we call a job or whatever. So one of the things is, I think a lot of people feel that work and jobs are terrible things,
Yeah.
essential things. And unfortunately, a lot of the times they're very right. But the question is, and this is for young people, and maybe as we're older, can we find it ourselves, is can we all have a vocation? I mean, Oscar Wilde said, you know, you have to be yourself because everybody else is already taken. Well, apparently he might have said that. We're not too sure. So, vocation is the ultimate work because its definition is that you're doing something you love. And you do it anyway, even if you didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Okay. But of course, as we said earlier on, everything's balanced. We need money to live, and we would like lots of it if we can have it. Maybe we don't need too much of it. But so the question is, can you either follow your vocation, or can you find it, or maybe can you shape it? So, I refer sometimes to the book Ivan Denisovich. I'd recommend all people to read that book if you haven't already read it, from Solzhenitsyn, because it talks about a guy who is an intellectual powerhouse finding himself in a gulag, at minus 20 degrees, being given the job to build a wall out of bricks. And he finds his vocation. He wants to build the perfect wall. So he's managed to create something absorbing out of a terrible situation. That's an extreme example, but it's a good book to read. And it's entertaining. What's entertaining is human misery. Shouldn't be entertaining. So I think we need to try to find our vocation. And if we're not finding it, change your job. But too often we're ready to just change our job. And then we need to remember that we have a responsibility to ourselves to make our job good. Nobody's going to make your job good for you. You've got to make it good for yourself. So I think there's too much, maybe in the world we're in today, of people just hopping from job to job and, I want to find and experience something else, and not giving enough attention to raising our capability, to competence, to experience, to mastery. So nothing is easy. It's difficult. And there's no shortcuts.
But it's also, sometimes you don't know what you want. And that's kind of, if you don't know where you want to go, you just go into the wrong direction, worst case. And that's where you jump from job to job to job.
Yeah, but sometimes, absolutely. And sometimes we make decisions which bring us in a certain direction. Yeah. And sometimes I say, don't regret that. Just keep making those decisions. Look, the only way to answer that question is to use the word communication. Talk to people.
Yeah.
Explain your situation. If you're in a job where you don't agree with the boss, get promoted. And
agree.
Change the rules yourselves. So, and it's easy to say that. It's all too easy to say that. Also remember that bosses sometimes have the same problems.
They most of the time have.
Sometimes I say to people, if you have the mindset of your boss, you're in a good place. Understand the boss. We talk about empathy. Yeah. Understand, when you complain about things, it's okay to complain, but maybe sometimes we should look on the other side and look back. We might see something different. Again, not for me. I'm a very imperfect person, but I think it's good practice to do that. So back to your question, if people are wondering, are unhappy or feeling unfulfilled or they want something else, keep talking to people and then thinking about what people are saying.
Yeah. That means improve ourselves on an ongoing basis.
Sure. We all want to improve.
But we don't want to change.
But we don't want to change. Or we find change difficult.
So you wrote the book, Improve a Good Idea. Why did you write that book?
It's a very difficult question. I wanted to literally just write down what was in my head. And I wanted the project to write the book became a project, an exercise in just figuring out things, okay, and then writing. And I had help from my business and narrative and story and historian and philosophical help from James McCabe, who's another extraordinary individual who many people know. And he helped me write the book by helping me figure the things out. He gave as good as he got. And the ideas became shaped. So then we literally started to write. And then I suppose the other reason is to get a voice, and that's maybe like you say with other people, I'm not a big guy. I'm not in a big company. I'm not an important guy.
You are.
But, in our society, people go to people who are in those important positions. And so I'm looking for a voice. And I'm looking for like-minded people to collaborate and to share and to make things a bit better than they are now. So that's maybe why I wrote the book.
The thing is, if you don't externalize your ways of thinking, nobody knows how you think, so they can even not either argue with you, but they also cannot contact you to discuss about something that you said. So
actually, that's a good point, because another reason for all of this is you can't, in our fast world of impatience, and you've got half an hour. Tell me what you want to tell me. You're belittling not only your own, maybe give a bit more time, more consider. In my business, we have the rule called the consider rule. Mm-hmm. So no matter what anybody says to you, consider. Don't jump to the first answer.
Yeah.
So another reason for writing the book is because it's multi-layered. There's a lot in it. There's a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of learnings. There's a lot of experience I'm trying to share from my own experience. I didn't research this academically.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you what everybody's told me and what I've experienced. So you can't do that in an hour's discussion. So that's why you write the books as well. If you want to understand, or you want to get some value, or maybe it'd be useful, maybe not. Maybe it makes you think. Maybe you get entertained. It's a funny story.
Yeah.
It's a strange story. That's why I write the book.
For whom is this book? Like, who should read this book?
Ooh,
let's assume that some people made it to the end of the podcast and they say, that's all interesting. What is who should read it?
If you're in a position of authority where you are trying to instigate improvement or positive change, it might be valuable to read the book. If you're a student or somebody starting out, looking to find your way in a world of consultants and innovators and all the rest of it, you might find something in there for you to help you get your head around what it's all about. If you're in your 30s and you feel you're stagnating, or you're working in an organization that is stagnating or suffering failure, you might find some value in the book. But really all it is an attempt to lay it out as it is today in 2026, from what's happened in the last 35, 40 years, and in a world full of chronic problems that need fixing.
John, thank you very much taking all the way coming from Dublin to The Hague in the Netherlands to join me on the podcast and having this fantastic conversation. I believe you're a person that has so much to give from the knowledge that you have, and you package that fantastically into the book. And I really enjoyed the last 2 days with you, and I'm sure we're staying in contact going forward as well. Thank you very much for the podcast conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Jens, and your team. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I definitely think we are like-minded. I think we have a future together with other people, and I look forward to it intensely. So it's been a very valuable trip for me, and I really appreciate the experience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.